everybody, it's Jen with Caketastic Cakes, and if you are really new to baking and you are very, I guess, uncomfortable with baking, and you say things like, I can't even make a box cake, well, I'm going to show you and walk you through how to make a box cake, because box cakes are made to be made by anybody. They're really doable. They really are. So you start with a couple grease pans. I'll include a link to the video on how to properly grease a pan. I have two 6-inch pans. They're 6 inches across, 2 inches deep. You can get them at Walmart, no big deal there. And you need to preheat your oven to 350 degrees. Look at those lovely pans. Now I'm going to be using Duncan Hines chocolate cake. And these box mixes are set up so that you only need 3 additional ingredients, and they're simple ones. You're going to need a cup of water, a third a cup of vegetable oil, canola oil, sunflower oil, something like that, and 3 eggs. Bring everything to room temperature. So take your stuff out, measure it out, leave it on your counter, walk away for half an hour. Come back. Now, when you're ready to come back to mix everything together, you put the box mix into a bowl, and then you add your 2 liquid ingredients. I pour all the oil in, I pour all the water in, and I'm going to add just 1 egg. These eggs have now come to room temperature, so they're perfect to add. You're going to add 1 first, and we've got 3. No, we're not going to add another one yet. We're going to mix it first. I turn the mixer on just a low speed. You can mix by hand if you've got crazy upper arm strength. I do not anymore. And you can do it with a hand mixer as well. I just have my KitchenAid, so life is a little easier for me. Once that egg yolk is mixed in, you're going to see the orange disappear. Throw in your second egg. And now I crack my eggs into a separate cup, so that way if any eggshell crumbs fall into that little bowl there, it's not going to get mixed into the batter. I can easily pick it out. And again, everything is just room temperature. It was just sitting on my counter for a little while. So far so good. There goes the last one. And mixing it in. And you're going to let this mix for about 2 minutes. Now, what I like to do is about halfway through, and you start the timer after you add your last egg, is about halfway through, I'm going to stop it. I'm going to take a spatula, just a rubber spatula, and I'm going to scrape down the sides of my bowl. So this way, any of the powder mix that's stuck to the sides or isn't quite getting reached by my mixer paddle, I will scrape off and stir up and mix it all in together so I'm not wasting anything. And you don't have to worry about anything else beyond this. That's it. Like that's your cake batter right there. If you were making your own cake from scratch, you'd be adding cocoa powder and flour and sugar. And these cake mixes, when they come in the box, everything's in there. It's just so, simplified for you. So yeah, once you're happy with it, you got it all scraped down. Of course, scrape off the excess of your spatula back into the bowl because it's cake and you don't want to waste any that you don't have to. And then finish mixing it. And you can see it's pretty runny. Like if you've had any experience with other cake mixes and cake batters, sometimes they're thicker. The chocolate ones do tend to be a little bit more runny just because of the nature of them. But, that's just my experience anyway. So yeah, after your 2 minutes are up, you're going to see it's nice and homogenized. You like that word there? And you're going to pour them into your pans. Now don't forget, your oven has been preheating all this time. So it's at 350 degrees. And once again, you're going to get your spatula out and pour it into your 2 pans. Now, one cake mix will make, 2 small pans like this. So you're going to want to pour it as evenly as possible, or as evenly into, divide it in half as evenly as possible. And you can see what you're doing. You can tell, eyeball it. If it looks crooked, just get a spoon out and, spoon some from the more full into the less full until it looks good. I'm using my spatula, like I mentioned, to scrape down the walls of my bowl because, again, cake, you don't want to waste any of it if you don't need to. You can see I kind of pulled back there from the second one because I felt like the first one needed a little bit more. And when you see them kind of next to each other, you can see that it's pretty darn close. And in this case, close really can be good enough. Like I said, if you want, you can spoon a little from one to the other, but they look pretty good. Now I'm going to take my 2 pretty good cakes there, and put them in the oven. They're going to go in the center rack of your oven, like right in the middle, as in the middle of your oven as you can get it. Set your timer on your oven and then go clean up your dishes because you may as well do it. You've got some time on your hands. This is where it can get a little tricky. Follow the box's instructions. And as a general rule of thumb, you're going to bake it about 25 minutes if you're baking cakes. Because my cake is the tins are a little smaller, that means the cake batter is denser, it's thicker, so it's going to have to cook a little bit longer. I also have I don't have non-stick pans. I don't have the ones with the coating or the dark coloring. So that also changes the temperature as well as the baking time. So make sure you look at the directions on the box. Now my cakes are done, so I take them out of the oven. I put them on my cooling rack. I check the center. That was what I was poking there with the stick to make sure they come out, like 99% clean. And then you let them sit for about 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, take them out of the pans and leave them on the cooling rack again for maybe another half an hour or so until they're much cooler. Now you can see here there's like a light area and a dark area, like a line across that separates the two. That's where the cake was baking inside the pan and where it raised above the surface of the pan. So it's just like a little caramelization basically on the outside there. You're going to use that line as a guideline to cut off the tops of your cake. Now, this might seem kind of crazy, but this is how when you stack your cake, it's nice and flat and it's not humped and falling over or anything like that. And I'm using just a bread knife to cut straight across my cake. And again, this is something you can eyeball. So if you cut it and it's a little crooked, just go back and trim a little bit off the edge, just like I did there, to make it more even and flat. Now I'm feeling the center of the cakes. They're still warm. So I'm not going to do anything with the icing until they're 100% cool. What I am going to do is I'm going to cut the cakes in half one more time. And again, this is going to be done as straight as possible. And you're not going to trim off anything extra though if you do go crooked here. You just go straight across as best you can. Don't move your layers. I'm lifting it up just to show you how it looks, but I'm putting it right back where it was. As long as you put your two pieces back sitting on top of each other the way they were, if it's crooked or not, whenever it comes back together, it's going to form that overall level cake. I don't know if this is coming across clearly or not, but even if it's crooked, it'll be fine. So yes, let them cool. Seriously, like an hour or two if you need to. They've got to be 100,000% cool, or the icing will melt, it'll get slimy, it'll fall apart. This is where a lot of people go wrong, is they don't let it cool. I'm putting a little mark of icing on the side of the cake, and that covers both of those pieces that I cut. So now I've got my one piece there that I'm going to ice, and when I put the other piece, my dog wants to see what I'm doing, and when I put the other piece back on top, yep, got to move them out of the way there. When I put the other one back on top, it will line up with the two marks, so that way I know exactly how to put them back together. So again, if it's a little crooked, it's not going to matter because it's coming back together in the right angle, the right shape. See the two marks? Put them back together, and now my cake is perfectly level, or as perfect as I originally had it. So once again, you're going to add another layer of icing. I'm using a butter knife here. If you have a small angled spatula, like the one off to the side there, then use it. It just makes your life a little easier. But if not, a butter knife will work. This is the same thing I did with the other cake, except now I'm flipping it upside down. All right, so you flip the entire thing upside down. This way, your top layer of cake is going to be perfectly flat and smooth because that was at the bottom of the tin, and that cooked as perfectly molded as your tin is going to get it. So once again, I'm adding another layer of icing. You want to go hearty with it, but don't go crazy. Otherwise, you might, lose a layer or two. You're just going to have a lot of squish coming out the sides. So once you get that on, my last piece, don't forget to flip it over. I can see my marks. There you go. And I'm facing the camera, so it's not exactly perfect, but you get the idea. Do better than me. If it's facing you, you can see it a lot better. So once you have it all stacked, then you're just using icing. And again, if you make icing, that's great. If you don't, like I'm doing all box, all store-made stuff here, nothing fancy. So I'm just using some cream cheese icing to go with my chocolate cake because I like that best. And I'm just smearing it around. As you can see, my one cake is going to end up using 2 tubs of the icing, just because I tend to go very heavy-handed with the icing. And it's kind of funny because I don't even like that much icing. I tend to scrape a lot off, but I feel like it looks better. I don't know. So that's all you're going to do. You just keep working around the sides, and when you spread icing on the sides of the cake, try to spread it as perpendicular as possible to the cake plate, so that way you're not accidentally putting too much pressure on any of the layers of your cake, and you won't accidentally push it to the side, because if your cake is too warm, this will not work, and you'll end up, shoving the cake all over the place. So that's why I say, and I'll say it again, make sure it is 100% cool. And you're going to know it's completely cool when you touch the center of your cake after you cut it. When you cut the tops off, at least, when you put your hand in the center of the cake, it's going to feel, if anything, a little bit chilly, because it will become room temperature, so it will be cooler than your hand. You can't proceed until it's cooled. Now, once you got all the icing on, I did a little bit of a time skip there because honestly, it was boring watching me put icing on a cake. You're going to try to smooth out the sides as nicely as you can, just because it looks a little better. And you're going to smooth off the top as nicely as you can. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect because it's delicious chocolate cake. So, you want it to look nice, but at the same time, it's going to taste great. And once you're happy with it, I would recommend putting it in the refrigerator for maybe like half an hour. This will help any type of residual warmth in the cake to leave. It'll help the icing set up so it will become a little bit more steady and sturdy. But you're done. You got yourself a delicious, easy box chocolate cake. You can do it. So I hope you found this video helpful. Please like and subscribe because it helps me out as well. I've got a ton of other videos out there, a lot of beginner ones that you might want to take a look at. And as always, thanks for watching Caketastic Cakes.